Hello everyone, I'm Jérôme Lepage, the Head of Marketing and Business Development for the Transport Division at JCDecaux. So thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the presentation of the key insight of our latest global airport research carried out by Ipsos and named the first class advertising and the enduring magic of airports. So first I will invite you to leave questions on our chat if you have many, and that we will come back after the presentation on it. To start, we are obviously at a turning point in our industry. After going through severe turbulence in the past years, we could say that we are back to normal or almost back to normal according to where we are around the world. So here, given this pivotal moment, and being the worldwide leader in airport advertising, we felt that it was our responsibility to offer, I will say, a new projected vision about the profiles of the audience, business, leisure, bleisure, or even the Gen Z, their frequency to travel also, their relationship with the airport environment, and we've seen that this environment has been transformed a lot in a positive way with a lot of sense of place, for instance, with also the transformation of the shopping environment. So that's the things that we would like to better understand, and also their perception about the airport advertising and the airport advertisers that we have. So today, I'm delighted to being joined by Tim Bond, the Associate Director at Ipsos UK. So welcome, Tim, and thank you for joining us. So before sharing the key insight, I would like you to explain us the methodology, because we are using a huge sample with over 11,000 respondents in 14 different countries. So could you give us more detail, Tim?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, we've got, to be precise, it's 11,368 respondents in total. They're all aged between 18 and 65 across the 14 markets. And they all took part in what was estimated to be around a 15-minute survey, depending on exactly how much of it they answered. So you can see all the markets that we mentioned here. And that sample was split into two main categories. First was the main sample, which consisted of what we call nationally representative sample of that particular market's general population. That would have been arranged by age, by gender, and also by region within that market. And within that, we had a natural fallout of those who'd flown within the last 12 months. So with that left us with around 9,500 people having flown, amongst the 11,000 in total. What this did was allow us to compare the profile of flyers against the general population for each market, and then the kind of global figure for all the markets that we surveyed, across two particularly key criteria as well, that of age and also of income, to have a comparison. Now, the second category there was the boosts. So we had four key profiles of airport behaviours and flyers that we wanted to make sure we had represented within the data. Those were business flyers. That's people who've flown for the purpose of work, of business, but also this new group of bleisure flyers. So those who've flown for a combined reason of business and leisure, or vice versa, I guess, but the bleisure flyers. We also had Gen Z, and that's those flyers who are aged between 18 to 24 for this particular study. And also frequent flyers, that's people who've flown more than five or more times in the last 12 months. Then last but by no means least, we also had what we called a city boost. These were focused on specific cities where JCDecaux has a presence within key airports within those areas. A good example of that is in North America. We had some city boosts around LA and also around Dallas to make sure that we had enough people who'd flown through those airports to be able to really dig into some of their behaviours as well, which we'll come on to later.
Yeah, and so on top of this quantitative research, so we made the decision also to get a qualitative approach by interviewing experts of the industry. such as Paul Griffiths, the CEO of Dubai Airports. We've got also Eric Yule Mortensen, president of the TFWA. We had also Olivier Jankovic, the managing director of ACI Europe, and Tak Ha, who is a research director at Ipsos UK. The first key findings that we've learned, which I will say it's not, I will say, a key finding, it's more, I will say, confirmation about the premium audience that we have at the airport. And you say that we had three segments that stand out: the business travelers, the decision maker, and the frequent flyers. So, Tim, can we say that these typical flyers skews younger, wealthier, compared to the general population?
So that certainly seems to be the case from the figures we can see. So the typical flyer profile does skew younger, and it skews towards wealthier, so those with higher household income in general. To give some context to that, we see them over-index within the 25 to 44 age group. That's 52% compared to 47%. And they also notably over-index, as I mentioned, in terms of that higher income, higher household income, which was 43% compared to 35%. On those three standout segments that you mentioned, we also see there that business flyers, who I mentioned earlier, those are people who've flown for either business or pleasure, and they account for around 42% of the overall flyer group. And they're also more likely to be from those higher income, frequent flyer groups, and also decision makers. The second group there was decision makers. That's people who actually make key business decisions within their organization and their employer. They make up 32% of decision makers. Again, they're more likely to be high income earners and also business influencers, so potentially not just make decisions, but actually influence the sort of wider businesses as well. And then last but by no means least, that frequent flyer group, that was about a fifth, just over a fifth of our flyer sample. And those are people who've flown 5 or more times in the last year, and they're more likely again to be business flyers, high income earners, and also decision makers. So you can see there's lots of crossover between these three key segments as well.
And do we see any discrepancy about flyers who are passing through airports where JCDecaux is present?
Sure. So where in airports where JCDecaux is present, we certainly see a footfall for some really valuable customer segments increasing compared to all flyers. So that's particularly felt among business flyers, decision makers, frequent flyers, and also those from higher incomes, all of which where the flyers who've passed through airports where JCDecaux are present are noticeably higher compared to all flyers.
And about the air travel and even the flyers for business reasons, let's say that, in the past 12 months, is there any specific insights? And what are the travel intentions that you noticed in the future?
So overall, 60% of all the respondents that we spoke to have flown in the last 12 months. Now, looking at business flyers in particular, they tend to fly more than the average flyer as well. They average around 5. It's 4.9 to be very precise, but that's around 5 flights in the last year. Now, comparing that to around 3.6 for all flyers, that's nearly a whole or almost a trip and a half, if you could have half a trip, more than the usual flyers. So business flyers are clearly traveling more. It's also interesting to note that business flyers, compared to all flyers, significantly over-index for those leisure trips that we've already mentioned a couple of times as well. So they're mixing in that leisure with that business travel. Now, when we look at intention to travel, that still remains strong and robust as well. So 61% have maintained or boosted their travel compared to pre-COVID levels. Within that, we see particularly strongly in Belgium, in Germany, in China, and also here in France, markets where that's felt particularly strongly. Within this 61%, we also see a third say that they travel around the same as they did pre-pandemic, with 1 in 4 saying that they actually feel like they're traveling more now than they did back in 2019. Now, some of the reasons behind this, we see half agree that the pandemic has not necessarily had an impact on their travel decisions, even if they are lower now than they think they were. And moreover, half also say that actually, because of the pandemic, they feel they want to travel more now than they did before. So potentially those couple of years that we were all sort of restricted and maybe locked in our houses, or certainly not able to fly quite as easily, means that people now are really have learnt to miss it and really want to get away. This is also in line with an Ipsos study that we run called the Global Business Influencers. That's a study which looks at senior business decision makers across 31 markets in the world, many of which are the same, although there are a couple of differences to the 14 that we studied here. But in that study, which has been going on every year as well, we see around 56% of those key business decision makers expect to travel more for business in the next year, and 49% expect to travel more for leisure as well. So those key sort of high-income business decision maker type characters, those really valuable customers, appear to want to travel more in the coming year.
So that business travel, video conference will not replace, I would say, business trip for sure, and face-to-face meeting. So it will be more like a complement than a substitution, definitely. So when we are looking also at the evolution of this global traffic, and according to the latest ICAO figures, we've seen that the global passenger traffic in 2023 rebounded impressively, and by reaching 8.6 billion passengers, which means almost 95% of the traffic in 2019. And the projection for 2024 are also very positive, because apparently it will surpass, I will say, the traffic that we've seen in 2019 by over 6%. And when you look at the graph, that you could see that also the projection of the future shows that the traffic will increase, and even by 30% by 2027 versus 2019. So when we are talking about this traffic growth, definitely we've got the question around the climate change concerns that came out. So that's something that we've been through, I will say, this research, and we ask also Ipsos to get, I will say, the vision about this concern. What are the top concerns of the respondent? And we've seen that in this Ipsos research, that climate change is one of the top 3 concerns that has been shared by the respondents, together with health and family health. We've got also war and terrorism concern, which is even the first one when we are looking at Europe, and we know due to the geopolitical issue that we could see that it could come first. But when we look at that, we could see that from consumers level, that from various research, that the changes to a more sustainable lifestyle revolve more around domestic behavior, such as saving energy, saving water, avoiding to use plastic packaging, plastic products, rather than directly cutting air travel. So that's a point. The second point also that it's important to share with you is that at macro level, the aviation industry is already committed to a transformation for a more sustainable future. And this shared vision is driving collaborative efforts from among, I would say, governments, airport authority, airport partners, such as us, and also airlines, to develop and implement sustainable practices. And to illustrate this point, I propose to show you a quote of Olivier Jankovic, the General Manager of ACI Europe.
And I think for us, really, decarbonization is no longer just about our license to grow. It is today increasingly about keeping our license to operate. You ask to any airport CEO, decarbonization is always the top priority on the list. Now, the next frontier, the ultimate frontier for us will be, of course, to facilitate the availability of sustainable aviation fuel at airports and to prepare for zero-emission aircraft. So that means we will need to secure access to green energy that will be used by hybrid electric aircraft or by hydrogen-powered aircraft in the future. But I think there's a lot of opportunities there because that means that over time, we can look at evolving the role of airports. I mean, airports today, they are transport hubs. With that kind of evolution, we can potentially become energy hubs, providing green energy not just to the users of our airports and the airlines first, but also to our communities around the airport.
And this transport hub expressed by Olivier has been transformed in a very good way also, because you were talking about that the fact that maybe in the future we will go to, I will say, an energy hub. But before, we've seen that this airport and the environment of the airport has been transformed, having this sense of place, offering amazing shopping experience within the transformation, for instance, with the extension at Paris CDG Terminal 1, with this luxury boulevard, with also this concept of the chic French brasserie that you could see in the boarding hall. We've seen also the transformation of Milan Linate and all the environment around the shopping, the restaurant. We're going to see also the transformation of Lima Airport, the future Lima Airport. So we've seen this transformation in terms of design, services, experience. As this achievement has been valued by the respondent in the research?
It seems to be, yes, definitely. The environment's really important. We see in the figures that 71% of the people we surveyed see that airport as important. It's the way it's laid out and also the atmosphere that they kind of experience within it. The same proportion also feel that the airport experience is special and is kind of markedly different from their daily lives. So it's something they potentially look forward to within that as well. And I think that's why we see that 68%, this last one, that agree that the airport is really part of their holiday and travel experience. So it's not just that people kind of start their holiday once they arrive at their destination. They're really wanting to start it from the moment they get to the airport.
They are already in the mood of traveling and having a good time, even if it's for business or leisure reason.
Exactly.
So that's the point. And that's definitely something that we notice, that the airport experience is an integral part of the journey. And that's the thing also that I would like to share with you, because it's also the vision of Paul Griffiths, CEO of Dubai Airport, talking about hospitality, which is also a concept which is very important, for instance, in Paris Airport. So let's have a look to the quote of Paul Griffiths.
The first thing is to recognize that we are in the hospitality business. We are there to make every single moment of the customer interaction a positive and enjoyable one. And I think it's incredibly important to review our infrastructure and technology on a constant basis to make sure we continue to serve this objective.
And in another quote, Paul Griffiths also qualifies the airport experience as intimate and personal. And this is confirming a previous research that we carried out in 2021, something like that. And it was about the business decision maker. And we've seen, and they were saying, that their airport experience, it was their own time, that they could control. And that's something which is very important, and that it's confirmed by Paul Griffiths. That's also part of the airport experience. We've seen that the shopping experience, it's a key moment. And I would like also to share this vision with Erik Juul Mortensen, the president of the TFWA.
We need to create a truly engaging experience that makes a visit to the airport shop an essential part of any German. I think ours is a unique environment in which consumers have the time and the mentality to enjoy the shopping experience in a way that is becoming increasingly rare in an online world.
And Tim, about this shopping experience, what are the key insights that you've seen in this research?
Yeah, so the first one is that 85% of flyers have made a purchase in the last 12 months within the airport environment. That's 42% of those who've spent over $100 or their local currency. And it's worth saying that's $100 over any food or beverages that they might have bought within the airport to consume within the airport. So these are all additional purchases outside of just sort of your daily drink and meals. Moreover, 17% say that they've surpassed the $500 mark in terms of their airport spending. So there is a wealth of spending there. So 2/3 of travellers also say that they don't pre-plan their airport purchases. So they're not necessarily going in with a set plan. They're actually open to experiencing and looking around and quite literally shopping, not just going after the thing that they want. The top categories in terms of the areas that are bought are confectionery, and we've got fragrances and perfumes, and also beauty products. Now, the other one was that half feel more at ease purchasing specifically luxury items within the airport environment than maybe they do within other retail environments, which is a theme we sometimes see in that luxury retail, that actually the access and going in there, they feel slightly more comfortable than they would in a traditional luxury retail store. So ultimately, what we see is that many engage in that window shopping experience within airports. And whether they make the purchase there, we actually also see within the figures that people might go on to then purchase at destination or even after the trip altogether. So even if the purchase isn't immediate, there's still potentially a time there to kind of trigger a purchase later on for some of these brands.
And as the airport is integrated in the journey.
Exactly.
That's confirmed, this approach. And also to be back to the previous research about business decision maker, they were saying also that at the airport, they love going shopping because they don't have the time in the rest of the week or the weekend due to their activity. But they know that at the airport, they will get the offer, and which is according to what they need. So it was really expressed by this category. And so we say that most of the time that frequent flyer, business flyer, they arrive at the airport last minute. But according to this research, do you confirm this belief?
So no, it goes against what we might expect. So half of flyers in the last 12 months say that they arrive at least 2 hours before their flight. Now, if we break this down by domestic and international, and also with a view on business flyers as well, we see 42% of all domestic flyers arrive at least 2 hours before. So that's 2 or more. It's not just that they're 2 hours, it's 2 or more. And that actually increases for business flyers, which again might go contrary to what we might expect. Those business flyers who are more frequent, they may be more familiar with the process, but actually they are going there earlier than they necessarily need to, and clearly appear to be, that could well be connected to their wanting to experience the airport environment. Now, 60% of international flyers arrive at least 2 hours before. Part of that might be because they have to arrive a bit earlier, but that's similar for business travelers as well. So again, they are arriving with time to experience those environments and to potentially browse and shop.
Yeah, so it's a perfect transition to our last part about the advertising. And so I will start by sharing also with you the vision of Paul Griffiths about the impact of the advertising and the positive impacts that he could consider at Dubai airports.
It's really interesting because if you look at the history of the way brands and services were advertised even 15, 20 years ago, they always used to feature the product and point out the benefits of engaging with that particular brand and product. Now we see a complete shift where the brand images that are created and the advertising medium that are created are based on establishing an emotional connection with the brand.
So the concept of emotional connection expressed by Paul Griffiths is definitely a key driver of the airport media. And at JCDecaux, that's the reason why that we, I will say, continuously have invested to develop this kind of vitrine and iconic media, either analog or digital, to give the opportunity to the brands to get, I will say, a specific, I will say, qualitative area to get their brand image, but also by reinforcing the digital network, and also now to propose more innovation in terms of content. We've seen the trend with 3D content, with also content with the interactivity, with augmented reality, with the AI also, that it's coming and helping, I will say, the way to build up dynamic content. So that's something which is a key driver for the advertising. This research reveals that for the vast majority of the respondents, that they perceive the airport advertising in a positive way. So what are the insights that you could share with us about advertising perception?
Of course. So first of all, when people arrive and their kind of general feelings around being at the airport, it's notable that whether they're departures or arrivals, there is this feeling of excitement and anticipation and curiosity that they report. So that's really clearly kind of very positive emotions and not necessarily kind of any necessary anxieties about their travel. They're all sort of looking forward. Moreover, 70% of flyers say that they enjoy looking around the exhibitions, the shops, the stands, and also the adverts and other things that are around that airport environment. The top associations for brands that are being advertised around the airport, those are also really positive. So things like being seen as global, as successful, as more innovative and more trustworthy, as well as that sort of prestige of being within those environments as well. Then flyers also appear to view the actual advertising within airports in a more positive light than some of their online and social media counterparts, and in some key and really interesting metrics as well. So first of all is that they feel that it gives the brands that advertise there a real international status, so that global feel that we saw just now as well. First of all, they see those ads as more creative within those environments. They believe the brands that advertise there are higher quality. So again, there's a lot of brand association that can happen just by using the media potentially. They say that those ads catch their attention more easily or better. So again, that media really catches them. And it also enhances brand image. So there's both kind of benefits for the media in terms of how it engages them over some of the online and social media counterparts, but also the brands that advertise there appear to be able to get some really strong brand benefits as well.
So easy transition to effectiveness, because that's a key point for you as advertiser and at the airport. So can you share some insight on how airport can help advertiser to build up brand image, influence consideration, but also the conversion, to drive the conversion?
Exactly. So 3/4 of flyers said that they have taken at least one sort of positive or commercial action after seeing an advert after seeing an advert within the airport. They've taken some kind of commercial action. And these actions spread across the sort of awareness, consideration, and conversion cycle as well. So to go through them quickly, we see them increasing awareness. So that 60% said that they've discussed a good or service that they've seen advertised with a friend or colleague or family member. Similarly, 61% say that they've searched for more information about that brand after seeing it advertised. And then when we start to look at consideration, 62% literally just say that they've considered purchasing that item after seeing an advert within the airport, while around 60 and 61% have either visited that advertised good, their online website or store, or visited their physical store as well. Now, last but by no means least, the conversion. So 54% of the flyers that we surveyed said that they have purchased the advertised good that they'd seen the ad for within that airport. And 47% said that they've downloaded the app that was related to that advert as well. So whether you're trying to get downloads or trying to actually trigger purchases, whether it's there or after the fact, clearly these ads can have really positive commercial gain.
Thank you, Tim. So we reached the end of this presentation, but before, I would like also to conclude with a quote of Paul Griffiths and to also remind you that here in this research, we confirm the uniqueness of the airport media and that it offers, I will say, unparalleled opportunities for you as an advertiser and to engage with affluent and influential audiences. And that's something that it was important also to confirm, to give insurance also about these benefits of the airport media. So there is no better way to conclude with the quote that you could see from Paul Griffiths, CEO of Dubai Airports, saying that advertising in airport plays an absolutely key role in helping to create this ambience and brand presence that will inspire an emotional response from our customers. So we see an integrated future between advertising, brands, the design and execution of airport experience, both in a physical sense and an emotional sense. So I think that it's also a concept that we've seen about emotion and that now we've got amazing opportunities according also to the development of such technology with AI, with augmented reality, with 3D also, to give more opportunity and to address, I will say, more dynamic content and to be more efficient in that way. So now I will open the floor to a question. So I think that we received few questions from you, and feel free to send questions. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, we will come back to you with the answer according to your question. So Tim, we've got a first question. How were participants selected for the study, and what measures were taken to ensure the sample's representativeness?
Sure, so it's a good question. It's a slightly technical one for us, but one we get often. So we, within Ipsos, have our own dedicated panels that we look for in all markets. And then in certain markets, we'll have panel partners as well. These are sort of best of breed that we can find that we use. Within those, we then use market census data to ensure that we get that representativeness that I talked about. So things like age and gender, to make sure that they match the general population within those markets. And then we actually set quotas to make sure that we hit those numbers when we're doing them. So within 1,000, it will be sort of percentages. And then lastly, we also weight them back. So in this particular case, we used boost groups. So those would be weighted back into that general population so that they're not sort of skewing or changing those figures. So it's all very carefully done.
Okay, thank you, Tim. There is a second question. Did you investigate the Gen Z flyers? Big topic. If so, how do you say compared to other groups and to the average flyer?
So yes, we did. Clearly a key audience. But funnily enough, one of the reasons that we haven't talked about them very much is because they're remarkably like all other flyers. So if you go and look at the report, you'll be able to see some of the specific minor areas where they're slightly different, but generally they're remarkably like those general flyers that we see. They're not that abnormal.
Yeah. And for your information, so we did the same, not only for the Gen Z flyers, but for the segments that we addressed during the call, and to get specific, I will say, approach and details, for instance, with business flyers, the frequent flyers, the decision makers also. So that's the kind of approach that we could get. We've got another one. So you mentioned that 77% of flyers have taken after being exposed to an ad at the airport, which seems very high. Can you please share more on this?
So this was the commercial actions one that we had at the end there. So this is kind of a grouping there of, they've taken any one of those various commercial actions that we talked about through awareness, consideration, and and conversion. So really what that means is that at some point over the last year, they recall seeing an ad and have done one of those things. So really what we're seeing there is that, yeah, it is, a lot of people are recalling doing those things. So it's an imperfect, or it's not a perfect science, but it's clearly an indication that they are recalling taking those actions. And then when we look at the individual actions, we see that actually the percentages across those are all really strong as well, as I mentioned.
Okay, thank you. So there is maybe a last one. How do you see the potential opportunities between the airport and the travel retail market installed in the airport? Do you think it's optimized, and is there a long way to go? So I will take maybe this question. Definitely there is opportunities. That the things that we already seen and that we have developed, for instance, at Dubai Airport, and that we are addressing in Paris, in Frankfurt Airport also, and in some other, that we are starting to get this, I will say, optimization, and thanks also to get access to some data of the duty-free operator, for instance, because that's the thing that will enrich and will help us to optimize, for instance, the media plan, but also to get feedback on the return on investment for you as an advertiser. So that's the kind of things that we are starting to get. We've got a data department at JCDecaux supporting all our different subsidiaries, and that's the things that we are working on it. We've got already some dashboards ready to access, but we need to get access to some data to be in this position to get this, I will say, collaborative approach, and to be in a position that you've got an efficiency that will come out when we are talking about the retail industry, the airport, and the advertising. So definitely that's the point. So I think that we've seen all the questions. I don't know if there is other question. No. So thank you, Tim. Thank you to your team also, and Journey especially, and TAC, because you worked a lot on this research in a very short time. But that's part of the business. Every time that we need to get quick feedback. I would like also to thank the department at JCDecaux, the communication department, who helped us to organize this webinar. Also my department with Abdallah, Louisette, and Sophia. All the experts also, because you can understand according to their agenda that it was not easy to get time, but I think it's a very important approach to get their feedback. So you've seen some quotes. We will share the full interview in a white paper that we're going to issue in the coming weeks, and that we will share with you. So for the next step also, it's very important, because you've seen here, I will say, the key insight of the global research. Now we are sharing all the details with all our different subsidiaries. And so I invite you to get in contact with your main contact at JCDecaux, wherever you are, and that they will contact you, and to share more details about maybe, I will say, the national residents, if it's part of the survey, and you will see it, that the passenger, wherever he is, has the same, I will say, behavior. So that's something also that we've learned, that there is no discrepancy from one country to another one, or from one, I will say, flyers in Europe versus in another country, or slight differences. So thank you again for attending this call. I invite you also to ask questions in the future if you've got any comments, or welcome. So have a good day if you are in South America or in the US, and a nice afternoon if you are in Europe. Thank you again. Bye-bye.